Imagine you're in the dirt. Your hands are shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. You just made a call that goes against every number, every algorithm, every cold prediction from an AI that has never bled. The screen on your wrist flashes red. Failure probability, 97%. Your second in command is watching you. Your squad is waiting. And you have 3 seconds to decide. Trust the machine that's never lost, or trust the gut of a soldier who's already lost too much. This isn't a drill. This is the moment the future of warfare learns something it can't compute. This is my story. The dust tasted like copper and regret. I pressed my back against the crumbling wall of what used to be a schoolhouse, the sun hammering down on us like a god with a grudge. My helmet strap bit in my jaw. Somewhere to the east, maybe 2 clicks out, the chatter of a light machine gun stuttered, then stopped. That wasn't us. Our designated marksman, Corin, was still zeroed on the ridge, his breathing so slow I could barely hear it through the comms. "Sergeant Hale," the voice in my ear said. Not human. Flat. Synthetic. The AI they'd foisted on us 6 months ago, call sign Nestor. Your current positioning presents a 73% probability of encirclement within the next 11 minutes. Recommend immediate fallback to Rally Point Alpha. I didn't answer. Not because I was ignoring it, but because I was watching Private Malik check his rifle for the 4th time. His hands weren't steady. 22 years old. 2 weeks out of advanced training. The kid had a wife back home who was 7 months pregnant, and he'd show me the sonogram photo during the Hello ride-in. He'd traced the outline of the tiny skull with his thumb and said, "If it's a boy, I'm naming him after you, Sarge." I told him to save that kind of talk for after the op. Now I wasn't sure there'd be an after. "Sarge." That was Staff Sergeant Lena Voss, my second. She crawled up beside me, her face streaked with dust and sweat, her eyes the color of a winter sky. Cold, clear, seeing everything. Nestor screaming in my earpiece, too. "You want to acknowledge it so it shuts up?" "Nestor doesn't shut up," I said. That's the problem. The AI was new doctrine. Joint Tactical Augmented Reasoning, JDR, but everyone called it Nestor after the old man who never shuts up in the Iliad. It processed battlefield data from drones, satellites, infantry sensors, and our own biometrics. It predicted, it recommended, and it had a nasty habit of being right. Except when it wasn't. 8 weeks ago, during a night raid in the Northern Valley, Nestor had calculated a 91% chance of an IED on the eastern approach. We took the western route instead, lost a tire to a pressure plate that wasn't supposed to be there. No casualties, but the look on my captain's face when he read the after-action report, deviation from AI recommendation resulted in unnecessary risk. That look told me everything. Trust the machine. Or else. But I've been leading soldiers for 12 years. I'd buried 3 of them. And no machine had ever held a dying kid's hand while he asked for his mother. "Talk to me, Voss," I said. "What's your gut?" She didn't hesitate. "My gut says Nestor's seeing the same thing we are. We're exposed here. That ridge to the north. If they've got a mortar team up there, we're fish in a barrel." And my gut. She glanced at me. A flicker of something. Trust, maybe, or the memory of every bad call we'd survived together. "Your gut got us out of the ambush at Cora's Bridge. Your gut said take the tunnel instead of the road, and we didn't lose a single person. So no offense to the piece of silicon in orbit, but I'm betting on your gut." That was Voss. Solid as granite. She'd been with me through 3 deployments, 2 firefights that should have killed us, and one very regrettable karaoke night in Kuwait where she'd absolutely murdered Bon Jovi. "Corin," I said into the comms, "what's your angle on the North Ridge?" A pause. Then his voice low and steady, the drawl of a Texas rancher's son. "Nothing moving. But that's what bothers me. Should be goats. Should be birds. It's too quiet, Sarge. Like they're holding their breath." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Corin had the instincts of a predator. He could read terrain the way a poet reads line breaks. If he said it was wrong, it was wrong. "Malik," I said, "how you doing over there?" The kid looked up. His eyes were wide, but not with panic, with that raw electric alertness that comes right before a storm. "I'm good, Sarge. Just wish they'd show themselves." "Careful what you wish for," muttered the last member of our team. Specialist Dante Rook Rojas, our demolitions and comms expert. He was hunched over a portable jammer, his fingers dancing across the interface. Rook was small, wiry, with a patchy beard he refused to shave, and a laugh that could cut through any tension. He was also the bravest person I'd ever met, which he hid behind a wall of terrible jokes. Hey, Sarge, what do you call an AI with a god complex? Not now, Rook. A commander, he finished anyway, grinning. Too soon. Voss threw a pebble at his helmet. It bounced off with a soft tink. Focus. I'm focused. I'm jamming their drone frequencies, recalibrating our IFF tags, and wondering why Nestor just downgraded our survival odds to 61%. You know, just a normal Tuesday. I checked my wrist display. Nestor's interface was a pulsing blue ring, calm and clinical. The text crawled across the screen. Enemy force detected. 12 combatants. 2 technicals with heavy machine guns. Probability of hostile action within next 4 minutes. 94%. Recommended action. Suppressive fire and fallback. For minutes. I looked at the schoolhouse behind us. It had been abandoned for years. Walls pockmarked by older wars. A blackboard still hanging with chalk residue of a language I couldn't read. There was a second floor, partially collapsed, but the roof access was intact. If we climbed up, we'd have sight lines on both the ridge and the eastern approach. If we stayed low, we might slip away before they got into position. Fallback meant crossing 50 meters of open ground to the wadi, the dry riverbed that snaked toward the extraction point. Nestor's algorithm loved that route. It was the fastest, the most direct, and the math said it minimized exposure. But math didn't know about the 3 goats we'd seen grazing at the mouth of that wadi 2 hours ago. Goats don't graze near hidden positions. And the way Rook's jammer had suddenly found more interference when we angled toward it, that wasn't coincidence. Sarge, Nestor's voice again. Calm, insistent. Your hesitation is increasing risk to your unit. Probability of successful extraction if you delay beyond 90 seconds. 38%. I muted it. Voss raised an eyebrow. You just muted a $3 billion asset. I just muted a suggestion, I said. Here's the order. We're not falling back to the wadi. It's too obvious. Nestor doesn't know what I know, which is that they're already there. The comms went silent. Rook stopped typing. Malik's hands finally stilled on his rifle. Even Corin, 100 meters away on that ridge, seemed to hold his breath. Then Rook said quietly, Sarge, if you're wrong about this, then we have a conversation with the captain and I take the heat. But if I'm right and we walk into that wadi, we're dead. All of us. And I'm not burying any more soldiers because a computer screen told me to. I saw it in their faces then. The micro-calculation every soldier makes when they decide whether to follow an order. Not blind obedience, trust. Trust earned in moments exactly like this one, in the spaces between what the data says and what the human heart knows. Voss nodded first. Where then? Up, I said, pointing to the schoolhouse roof. We take the high ground. We control the engagement. We make them come to us through that kill zone between the buildings. Corin, you've got overwatch from the ridge until we're set. Then, you displace to our 6. Copy, Sarge, Corin said. Rook, I need you to fake a signal. Make Nestor think we're moving toward the wadi. Feed the enemy the same lie if you can. Rook's grin returned, sharp and dangerous. Oh, I love this part. Lying to machines. It's like poetry. Malik, I waited until the kid met my eyes. You're with me. Stay close. Do not engage until I give the word. You see something, you report it. You don't play hero. Yes, Sarge. Good. Move. We went fast and low, hugging the walls, boots silent on the packed earth. The sun was a fist against the back of my neck. My heartbeat was a drum in my ears, but my mind was clear, that strange crystalline calm that comes when the decision is made and the only thing left is action. Behind us, Nestor's voice chirped in our muted earpieces like a ghost. Unit deviation detected. Recording for after-action review. Probability of mission failure, now 89%. 89%. Almost 9 out of 10 odds that we were walking into a disaster. But here's the thing about probabilities, they're not certainties. And somewhere in that 11% was a version of this day where we lived. I intended to find it. The schoolhouse stairs were gone, crumbled into a heap of rebar and concrete dust. We climbed the wall instead, using exposed beams as handholds, pulling each other up onto the second-floor landing. Malik slipped once, his boots skidding on loose rubble, and I caught his vest strap without thinking, hauled him up one-handed. He looked at me, breathless, and I saw something shift behind his eyes. Not fear anymore. Something harder. Something like resolve. The roof was flat and broken, offering a lip of concrete high enough to kneel behind. We spread out. Voss took the north angle, her saw resting on the parapet. Rook set up his jammer and began feeding false telemetry, our signatures drifting slowly toward the wadi, just like Nestor wanted. Malik and I took the east, where the ground opened into a shallow bowl of rock and low scrub. And then we waited. That's the part the movies never get right. The waiting. The wait time stretches like taffy, each second thick and heavy. The way your own breathing sounds like a freight train in your skull. The way you start to second-guess every choice you've ever made, every turn that led you to this rooftop, this moment, this edge of a blade. Nestor's prediction echoed in my head. 89% failure. I thought about the 3 soldiers I'd already buried. Private First Class Harmon, who'd stepped on a pressure plate 2 years ago because I'd chosen the left path instead of the right. Specialist U, who'd bled out in my arms from a neck wound, his blood warm and terrible against my palms. Corporal Diaz, who'd taken a round mint for me during a bad breach in a bad neighborhood on a bad day. The AI hadn't been in theater for those losses. But if it had, I wondered what it would have said. Probability of survival if Sergeant Hale moves first, 42%. Recommendation: let Diaz take point. Machines don't carry guilt. They don't dream about the faces of the people they couldn't save. I do. Contact. Corin breathed over the comms. East-northeast. 3 vehicles. Not technicals, APCs. Light armor. And Sarge? They're not moving toward the wadi. They're moving toward the schoolhouse. My blood chilled. Then heated. They knew. Somehow, they knew we weren't falling back. Whether they'd intercepted our comms, read our body language through a drone, or just had a commander on the ground with good instincts, it didn't matter. Nestor's prediction was unspooling in real time. The encirclement was coming, but not from the wadi, from the east. Voss, I said, my voice steady even as my heart hammered. Can you disable the lead APC with your first burst? If I aim for the driver's slit, maybe. But, Sarge, that's a 50-meter shot. They'll return fire before I can reload. Then, don't reload. Switch to frag. Rook, I need those jamming frequencies broadened. I don't care if you have to hotwire the battery. I want their comms screaming static. And if I fry our own gear, then we fight old school. Get done. Malik was looking at me. Not with fear now, with something else. Something I recognized from the old soldiers, the ones who'd been through the fire and come out the other side. Sarge, he said quietly, the AI said we'd fail. The AI doesn't get a vote, I said. Not today. The first APC crested the rise, its turret tracking slow and deliberate. Dust boiled from its tracks. Somewhere behind it, I heard the snap of small arms, the enemy infantry scrambling into position. 89% failure. I raised my rifle, sighted on the driver's slit, and I smiled. All right, you beautiful disasters, I said to my team. Let's show this machine what 11% looks like. The first shot cracked the air open like a fist through glass. It wasn't mine. It was Voss's saw, ripping a line of tracers across the APC's front glacis, sparks flying where the rounds bit into the armored slit. The vehicle slewed sideways, tracks chewing up the earth, and for one perfect second I thought she'd done it, blinded the driver, stopped them cold. Then, the turret swung toward us. Cover, I shouted, but Rook was already dragging Malik behind the concrete lip, and I was diving flat as the heavy machine gun opened up. Rounds chewed through the parapet, sending shards of rock and dust screaming past my helmet. I tasted grit and copper. The noise was physical, a pressure wave that compressed my chest and rattled my teeth. Voss, status. I'm up. Her voice strained but alive. She'd rolled left, come up on one knee, and was feeding another belt into her saw. Blood streaked her cheek, a shallow cut from shrapnel, nothing more. That got their attention. Rook, tell me you've got something. Rook was hunched over his jammer, sweat dripping off his chin. The device was smoking faintly, a thin wisp of electronics death rising from its vent. I'm giving them everything I've got, Sarge, but he slammed his fist against the casing. They're using frequency hopping. Adaptive. It's like trying to punch a ghost. Then improvise. His eyes met mine. Behind the patchy beard and the permanent smirk, there was a core of something dangerous. The same thing that had made him volunteer for this unit, that had kept him alive through 2 deployments and one very bad IED strike that had cost him 2 fingers on his left hand. Improvise, he repeated. Then he grinned. I love that word. He ripped open the jammer's panel, yanked out a tangle of wires, and began hot-wiring them to his own helmet comms unit. Okay. If I can't jam them, I'll join them. I'll piggyback their frequency, inject a looping noise signature, make their own comms eat themselves. Give me 90 seconds. You don't have 90 seconds. I pointed toward the second APC, which was now maneuvering around our left flank, its gun already tracking toward the schoolhouse. Malik, RPG. Now, the kid didn't hesitate. He dropped to one knee, unslung the rocket launcher from his back, and acquired the target. His hands were steady. His breathing was slow. I saw him exhale, saw his finger tighten on the trigger, and saw the third APC appear behind the second, its gun already firing. Malik down. He dove as the rounds tore through the space where his head had been. The RPG skittered across the roof, unfired. Malik rolled, came up with his rifle instead, and put a burst into the second APC's vision blocks. A desperation move, but a good one. The vehicle swerved, buying us seconds. Seconds Rook used. Got it, he shouted. Their comms are white noise now. They can't coordinate. Can't call for support. They're fighting blind. Beautiful, Voss said, and she meant it. Now how do we get off this roof? That was the question, because Nestor's prediction wasn't wrong about everything. We were pinned. 3 APCs in a semicircle below us. Infantry dismounting and spreading through the buildings to our east and west. The wadi was still open behind us, but that was a trap. If the AI had seen it, the enemy commander had seen it too. No, our only way out was to break through their line, create chaos, and disappear into the terrain before they regrouped. Corin, I said into the comms. What's your shot on the eastern APC's fuel cell? A long pause. Then, 210 meters. Wind's variable. But Sarge, if I miss, they'll know where I am. If you don't take the shot, we're all dead anyway. Make it count. I heard him exhale. The soft shift of his position. The click of his scope adjustment. Then the crack of his rifle, distant and clean. The APC's fuel cell didn't explode. That's a movie thing. But it caught fire, a gush of burning diesel spreading across the rear deck. And the vehicle's engine coughed and died. The enemy infantry scattered, suddenly, uncertain. Without comms, without their armored support coordinating them, they were just men with guns. Dangerous, but no longer inevitable. Go, I said. Voss, suppressing fire on the western building. Rook, you're on my 6. Malik, stay close. We're going down the east wall, through the smoke, into the dry creek bed. Don't stop. Don't look back. If someone goes down, we pick them up. Understood. For nods. For faces I die for. We went over the wall like water over a falls. The drop was 3 meters. I landed badly, my ankle twisting on a chunk of rubble, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The pain was a bright flare, then a dull throb, then nothing, adrenaline's gift. Voss was beside me, her saw roaring, stitching rounds across the enemy positions. Rook was behind me, one hand on his rifle, the other clutching the smoking remains of his jammer like a talisman. Malik was last, and he was falling behind. Malik! I shouted. Move! His leg, a piece of shrapnel, from where I didn't know, had sliced through his pants, through the muscle of his calf. Blood soaked his boot. He was limping, dragging that leg, his face white with pain and determination. I turned back, grabbed his vest, pulled him forward. I said we pick him up. I growled. You're not dying here, private. Not on my watch. You got a kid to name after me, remember? He laughed, a broken, breathless sound. I'm rethinking that name, Sarge. Too late. Move. We hit the creek bed just as the first APC brewed up. Corin shot had found something vital after all. The explosion was a hammer blow of heat and sound, and I used the confusion to push us deeper into the wadi's shadows. The walls rose around us, brown and crumbling, offering cover. Above us, Nestor's voice was still chirping in our muted earpieces, a ghost at the feast. Unit integrity compromised. 2 casualties reported. Probability of successful extraction, 17%. 17%. Better than 0. We ran until our lungs burned, until my ankle was a screaming knot of pain, until Rook's jammer finally died completely and went silent in his hands. We ran until the sounds of the enemy faded behind us. replaced by the rasp of our own breathing and the whisper of wind through the dry reeds. Then we collapsed. Voss was the first to speak. She slumped against the wadi wall, her saw across her knees, and looked at me with those winter sky eyes. 17%, she said. We beat the odds. The fight's not over, I said. But I was already pulling out my medical kit, already kneeling beside Malik, already cutting away his pant leg to look at the wound. It was nasty, but clean. The shrapnel had missed the artery. He'd live. He'd walk. He'd see his son. Sarge, Rook said quietly. He was staring at his dead jammer, turning it over in his hands like a fallen soldier. I lied before. About the comms. I didn't just give them white noise. I may have broadcast our position. Briefly. Just a ping. Less than a second. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. How brief is brief, Rook? Half a second. Maybe less. But, Sarge, if they were listening, if they had any kind of triangulation, then they know where we are. Voss finished for him. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. The tired of someone who's been fighting for too long and has just realized the fight just got harder. I closed my eyes. 17%. Now it felt like 0. But here's the thing about being a leader. You don't get to fall apart. You don't get to scream or cry or punch the wall. You take the information. You adjust. And you find a way forward even when forward looks like a cliff. Rook, I said, opening my eyes. Can you track their triangulation? Figure out where they think we are? He blinked. Maybe, if I reverse engineer the ping. But, Sarge, that would mean turning the jammer back on. And it's fried. I'd have to use my personal comms, which would also broadcast. Do it. We'd be painting a target on ourselves. We're already a target. The only question is whether we're a target they can find or a target they already have. Give me the second option. At least then, we know what they know. Rook looked at me for a long moment. Then, he nodded, pulled out his personal comms unit, and began to work. Corin's voice crackled over the backup channel. Not Nestor, just us. Sarge, I've got movement to your south. Maybe a squad. They're not moving fast. They're searching. They're hunting. I corrected. And we're the game. Okay, listen up. We're not running anymore. Running just gets us tired and predictable. We're going to do something Nestor wouldn't predict. Something stupid? Voss asked, but she was smiling. Something human, I said. We're going to split up. The silence that followed was louder than any gunfire. 3 teams, I continued. Voss, you take Malik. Get him to the extraction point. Slow and steady. Don't engage unless you have to. Corin, you're with me. We're going to be the decoy. Draw them east, away from the exfil route. Rook, you're on your own, but that's the point. You're the ghost. They won't be looking for a single operator moving north through the high ground. You'll circle around, hit their relay station if you can, and buy us time. Sarge, Malik said. His leg was bandaged now. The bleeding stopped. That's a suicide mission. You and Corin against a whole squad. That's the plan, I said. Because here's the thing Nestor doesn't understand. Sacrifice isn't a bug in the human operating system. It's a feature. Sometimes the way to win isn't to survive. It's to make sure the people next to you do. Voss's jaw tightened. That's not leadership, Hale. That's martyrdom. No, I said. That's math. 17% is not a bet I'm willing to make with all our lives. But if I can turn that into 2 separate bets, one for you and Malik, one for me and Corin, then maybe the odds get better for someone. And Rook? I looked at the demolitions expert. He was still fiddling with his comms, but his eyes were on me. Rook's our ace. He's the one who makes it back to tell the story. He's the one who tells the captain that Nestor was wrong. Rook swallowed. Sarge, I'm not good at speeches. I'm good at blowing things up. Then, blow something up for me. He stood up, saluted. Aragd, dasti, aterli sincere salute. Yes, Sarge. I returned it. Then, I turned to Voss. She was already on her feet, Malik's arm over her shoulder. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. Voss didn't cry. She just nodded once, sharp and final. See you on the other side, Hale. Not if I see you first. And just like that, we weren't a team anymore. We were 3 threads, pulling apart, each one carrying a piece of the mission forward. I watched Voss and Malik disappear into the wadi's shadows. Watched Rook scale the eastern wall and vanish over the top. Then I looked at Corin, who had finally emerged from his overwatch position, his long rifle slung across his back. You didn't have to volunteer for this, I said. Yes, I did, he said. Someone's out to watch your back, Sarge. And between the two of us, my shooting's better. I laughed. It was a terrible laugh, ragged, exhausted, half hysterical. But it was real. All right, Tex, I said. Let's go make some noise. We headed east, straight toward the searching squad, straight into the teeth of Nestor's 17%. And somewhere in orbit, the AI was already recalculating, already downgrading our odds, already writing our epitaph in cold, clean code. But it didn't know what I knew. It didn't know that the human heart doesn't care about probabilities. It only cares about the people beside it. The first engagement lasted 11 seconds. That's not bravado. That's just how long it took for Corin and me to turn a corner in the ruins and walk straight into two enemy fighters. They were as surprised as we were, rifles half raised, eyes wide, and in that frozen heartbeat, training took over. Corin shot the first one in the chest. I shot the second in the throat. They fell. We kept moving. Behind us, shouts erupted in a language I couldn't understand but knew perfectly. The hunt was on. We ran through the bones of the town. Collapsed houses, a gutted market, a mosque with its minaret snapped like a broken finger. Corin moved like a ghost, silent and efficient, pausing only to lay down, covering fire when I needed to reload. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. 2 years of operating together had forged a language of glances and gestures of knowing where the other would be before they got there. But the enemy was good, better than we'd expected. They flanked wide, used the terrain, forced us into kill zones we had to fight our way out of. Twice, Corin took rounds that cracked past his head close enough to ruffle his hair. Once I felt a bullet tug on my sleeve, spinning me sideways. We were losing, not the firefight. We were holding our own there. But the deeper battle, the battle of time. Every minute we spent running and shooting was a minute the enemy wasn't hunting Voss and Malik. But it was also a minute closer to our own ammunition running dry, our own bodies giving out, our own luck finally turning sour. Sarge, Corin gasped, as we ducked into a half-collapsed bakery. I've got 2 mags left, maybe 3. Same. I checked my wrist display. Nestor was still muted, but the red light was flashing, connection lost. The AI had given up on us. Or we'd moved into terrain where the signal couldn't reach. Either way, we were alone. How far to the rendezvous? Corin asked. 5 clicks. Through open ground. We're not going to make it. It wasn't a question. It wasn't defeat, either. Just an assessment. Corin was too pragmatic for false hope. No, I agreed. But that's not the point. The point is how long we can keep them chasing us. Every minute we buy is a minute Voss and Malik get closer to extraction. And Rook, I thought about the demolitions expert, alone somewhere to the north, try to find the enemy's relay station. Rook makes his own luck. Corin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you know, when they assign me to your unit, I read your file. 12 years. 3 deployments. 3 Kias under your command. I stiffened. That's not something I'm proud of. I'm not saying it to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because I looked at the numbers. Your loss rate is below the theater average. Significantly below. And do you know what I realized? What? The AI doesn't account for love. I stared at him. Think about it, Corin continued. Nestor calculates based on tactics, logistics, probability. But it doesn't know why you chose the left path instead of the right at Cora's Bridge. It doesn't know that Private Harmon had a wife and 2 kids, and that you took the left path because the right would have exposed him first. It doesn't know that you held specialists while he died, and that you carry that with you every single day. The AI sees variables. You see people. That's a weakness, I said. That's why Nestor's predictions are usually right. Because I hesitate. Because I second guess. Because I try to save everyone, and sometimes that means I save no one. No, Corin said. That's why you're still alive. You hesitate because you care. And care means you think twice. You look for another way. You don't just accept the first solution the algorithm spits out. Outside, the shouting was getting closer. Boots on rubble. The clink of metal equipment. They were sweeping the building. Corin stood up, checked his rifle, looked at me. Sarge, I have an idea. You're not going to like it. Try me. There's a drainage culvert under this bakery. I saw the grate when we came in. It leads east toward the open ground. Narrow, tight. But if you move fast, you can get through before they clear this building. What about you? I'll hold them here. Draw their fire. Give you time. No, Sarge, I said no, Corin. I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving me. You're completing the mission. That's different. He smiled, a thin, sad smile that didn't reach his eyes. Besides, someone has to be the hero. And, let's be honest, I've been wanting a war story to tell my grandkids. The time I held off a squad of insurgents so my sergeant could escape. That's a good one, right? Corin, listen to me. No, you listen. He grabbed my vest, pulled me close. His voice was low, urgent, almost angry. Voss and Malik need you. Rook needs you. The whole damn unit needs you. Because you're the one who sees what the machine doesn't. You're the one who makes the calls that keep us alive. So you're going to get in that culvert, and you're going to crawl, and you're going to live. That's an order. I opened my mouth to argue. Closed it, because he was right. And I hated him for it. I'll come back for you, I said. I know you will. That's not a promise. That's a threat. He laughed, a real laugh this time, bright and sharp. Get out of here, Sarge. I went. The culvert was darkness and filth, water up to my knees, the smell of rot thick in my throat. I crawled because I couldn't stand, my rifle dragging beside me, my ankles screaming with every movement. Behind me, the sound of gunfire started. Corin's rifle, steady and deliberate, answered by the chatter of enemy weapons. Then, the rifle went silent. I kept crawling. The tears mixed with the mud on my face, and I didn't bother to wipe them away. I emerged into twilight. The open ground was a broken plain of rock and withered grass, stretching toward the extraction point 5 clicks away. Somewhere to the north, I saw a plume of smoke. Rook, I hoped, doing what he did best. My wrist display flickered back to life. Nestor's connection restored. Sadgyan Tade. Your biometrics indicate elevated stress, possible mild concussion, and significant blood loss from a lower extremity wound. Probability of reaching extraction point unassisted, 6%. 6%. Almost nothing. I muted it again, and I started to walk. The first click was agony. The second was worse. By the third, I was hallucinating, seeing faces in the rocks, hearing voices in the wind. Harmon's voice. Yu's voice. Diaz's voice. All of them saying the same thing. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. The fourth click, I fell. My leg wouldn't hold me anymore. I lay in the dirt, staring up at a sky that was just beginning to show stars, and I thought about giving up. It would be so easy. Just close my eyes. Just rest. Just let the probability play out. 6%. Then I heard it. An engine. Low and distant. Not an APC. Something smaller. Something faster. A friendly vehicle. I raised my arm. Waved. Felt like I was trying to move a mountain. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. Boots hit the ground. And Voss was there, hauling me up, her voice cracking as she shouted, I told you not to see me first, you stubborn bastard. Malik was behind her, limping but alive. Rook was driving, his patchy beard caked with soot, grinning like a maniac. 17%, Rook said, dragging me into the back of the vehicle. You hear that, Nestor? 17%, and we're all still breathing. I couldn't answer. I was too tired, too broken, too full of a grief I wouldn't process until later when the adrenaline faded and the silence came. Corin, I come back for him. Ide Brumija. But not tonight. Tonight, I just held on as the vehicle bounced across the broken ground, carrying us toward the extraction point, toward the helicopter, toward the long flight home. And somewhere in the cold arithmetic of orbit, the AI was recalculating. Mission outcome reassessed. Unit survival, 4 of 5 personnel. Enemy combatants neutralized, 12. Friendly casualties, 1. Assessment, partial success. Deviation from recommended tactics, extreme. Note, human decision-making remains unpredictable. Further study required. Further study, as if we were specimens. As if our grief was data. I closed my eyes and saw Corin's face. His smile. His laugh. Someone has to be the hero. He'd wanted a war story for his grandkids. He'd gotten one. Epilogue. Woven into the ending 3 weeks later, I sat in a debriefing room with 4 stars on the shoulders of the men across the table. The air was cold, sterile, smelling of coffee and ozone. On the screen behind them, Nestor's after-action report scrolled in neat blue text. Human factor introduced unacceptable variance. Recommend reduced tactical autonomy for field commanders in future iterations. The general, a man whose name I won't repeat, whose face I've already started to forget, looked at me over his steepled fingers. Sadgyan Tade. The AI suggests that your decisions directly led to the death of Specialist Corin. Do you have a response? I thought about Corin in that bakery. The way he grabbed my vest. The way he'd said, "You're the one who sees what the machine doesn't." I thought about Harmon and you and Diaz. About Malik's sonogram. About Voss's winter sky eyes. About Rook's terrible jokes. I thought about all the times I'd second-guessed myself. All the nights I'd woken up in a cold sweat. All the probabilities Nestor had calculated. And all the ones it couldn't. And I said, "Yes, sir. I do have a response." I stood up. Tell your machine that Corin made a choice. He wasn't a variable. He wasn't a probability. He was a man who loved his country, his unit, and his friends. And he died so that we could live. You can't calculate that. You can't predict it. You can only honor it. The general's expression didn't change. But one of the other officers, a colonel with tired eyes and a silver oak leaf on his collar, nodded, almost imperceptibly. I saluted, turned, walked out. In the hallway, Voss was waiting. So was Malik on crutches, his wife's sonogram picture folded carefully in his pocket. So was Rook, already working on a new jammer, muttering about frequencies and revenge. "Well," Voss asked. "They're going to recommend reduced autonomy," I said. "They think I'm the problem." "You're not the problem," Malik said quietly. "You're the reason I'm going to see my son." I looked at him, at all of them, and I realized that Nestor would never understand. It would never understand the weight of a promise, the heat of a sacrifice, the way a team becomes a family, and a family becomes something worth dying for. It would never understand that sometimes the right call isn't the one with the highest probability of success. Sometimes the right call is the one that lets you look your soldiers in the eye and say, "I would do it again. For you. Every time. Come on," I said, clapping Rook on the shoulder. "Let's go get a drink." "I am buying." "You always buy after a mission," Rook said. "Because I'm always the one who needs it most." We walked out into the sunlight, leaving the cold blue glow of the AI behind. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between the numbers, Nestor recalculated one last time. Probability of Sergeant Hale making the same decision again? 100%. For once, the machine was right.